Hello, everybody. While everyone joins, I'll just ramble a little bit, and John can sit there looking pretty. We'll start the webinar in a second. It always just takes a couple of minutes for everyone to join the webinar from the Zoom waiting room, whatever that virtual waiting room is. Um, so welcome. It's the final talk of the Cycle Touring Festival 2025, which feels fairly incredible given it's only the 9th of February and the festival is already done for this year. So there we go. I hope you've had an enjoyable week, those people who've been watching multiple talks. I'm certainly seeing the same names coming up at lots of them, and which is great. As some people are already doing, please do introduce yourself in the chat box. It's always nice to see who we've got listening. Anne Wilson in Ecuador. Every time I see that she's in Ecuador, I feel very jealous because I've seen the photographs of the house that Anne is babysitting and it looks incredible. Welcome everybody. I'm sure we'll have a big Halifax contingent. We always do. And a big Cumbrian contingent, which is lovely. And Ontario, Canada, that's great. We've got people from all over the world, Canada, New Zealand,
Mm.
Ecuador, hopefully every continent apart from perhaps Antarctica. Amazing. Right. So those of you who have heard me give this blurb or heard one of our other hosts give this blurb before, you're welcome to just do something else, pick your nose while I do it again. But the Cycle Touring Festival has been going for since 2015. So it's our 10th year, our 11th kind of year of doing this. Um, we are a not-for-profit event, and it was started when myself and my husband Tim were cycling around the world, and we thought it would be lovely to get people together to celebrate the joy of exploring the world on a bike. And it is all about inspiring and encouraging people to come together. It's about bringing people together, sorry, to inspire and encourage each other to explore the world by bike. It's certainly not about us inspiring and encouraging people at all. It's about our speakers doing that. Um, and yeah, all our speakers do it for free. No one is paid to organise or to run the Cycle Touring Festival or to be involved in the festival. So we think that events need to be as accessible as possible. So we don't want cost to be a barrier on these virtual events. So they are free. If you are able to donate, then please do. I'll stick the PayPal link in the chat. I'm sure that by now, the end of the week, most people have already donated. We know from experience that only about a third of people do donate. But if you can donate, that would be amazing. If you can't, don't worry about it. Enjoy the talk. It's just great to have you. Amazing. Right. So, John, I'm so delighted to welcome John. I met John a few years ago when we were cycling around Orkney. Not long after lockdown, Tim and I did a cycle trip with our two eldest children before our third one was born. And I can't remember where we were in Orkney, near Scarabray, I think. And
Yeah.
John and his wife, Frank were there.
Right. Yeah.
Frank, and we were started having a chat because, as you do with other cycle tourists, you sort of see the panniers, and we had a chat, and then we ended up staying at the same campsite that evening, so we had more of a chat, and then it transpired that John actually runs this amazing website, cycletour.co.uk, and I'll pop a link in that in the chat when we get going, and John and Frank have done absolutely loads of cycle tours. They've used cycling as their main holiday. They're both teachers or retired teachers, and they've been cycling for their summer holidays, I think since about 1997. Is that right, John?
Yep.
Many years.
1997, 27 years.
27 years, amazing. And we've just been talking about back problems because I think has various back problems. It's meant that mountaineering and hiking were kind of off the agenda, and cycling was a great option. So it's just another reason to go get on a bike, isn't it? If you
Yep.
can't do other things. Um, so John's given us a talk before at the virtual festival, which was brilliant. I still talk to other people about it, about I can't pronounce it, John, but it's the translation is the
Look,
Milk Road
Pagan.
in Norway, the
Yeah.
Milk Vegan,
Milk
and
Pig.
and that's it's available on YouTube if you want to watch it. But it's this amazing talk all about this high road in Norway. So I was really keen to get him back and hear about some of the other adventures that John and Frank have been on. So I will leave it there and hand over to you, John.
Okay. Yes. Welcome, everybody. I'm amazed that so many people from all over the place around the world. I'm super impressed. Right. Okay. It's quite funny. I was talking to Laura and she saw my notes and she saw that I got a wee joke down there. And I thought, well, I'll start it off. It's always get people having a bit of a laugh. Anyway, the joke is there's a couple of guys in a pub, and one says, "I'm having a terrible job with my dog. He chases anybody on a bike." I said, "What did you do? Took his bike away?" So hopefully you're having a bit of a giggle at that one, and we'll get on. Right, cycling the Scottish Southern Islands. Okay, why did we decide to do this? Well, we're trying to be a little bit, how shall I say, environmentally friendly. And instead of sort of dipping off here, there, and everywhere, we thought try and do some stuff in the UK. People that have seen our website and our blog, we've done quite a lot of stuff in the continent, in sort of Norway, Denmark, Sweden, Iceland, all those sort of places. And there's a lot of good touring in this part, or in the UK. We've done a little bit in Scotland. We've done the Outer Hebrides, which a lot of people rush up to do, but not many people do the southern Scottish islands. So we decided that we'd do a wee tour. And basically, we took in these particular islands: so Cumbrae, Bute, Arran, Islay, Jura, Colonsay, Oronsay, and Kerrera. We were hoping to do Giga, but we didn't get there, and that's another story, whatever. One of the things we wanted to do was to not take the bikes on with our car. One thing, it's a bit of a pain trying to find somewhere to leave your car, whatever. So we decided we'd go on the train because we're only about 5 minutes from a train station. So took a bit of planning because you have to book your bikes onto the LNER trains that got the East Coast. So that took a bit of organising. Also, the ScotRail link from Oban back to Glasgow, that needs to be booked as well. So it was probably about 2 or 3 months of planning that because you have to, try and get them sorted out. Anyway, set off in the morning to down to the Wild train station, got up to Bury, changed, then caught the train to Peterborough. Unfortunately, halfway along, we stopped, and we stopped for about half an hour. We got delayed because of a goods train, and we got to Peterborough and missed our connection. And because we'd actually booked these wonderful LNER bike cupboards, which is the best way of describing them, when they tried to put us on the next train, there was only space for one bike. We then had to go to the travel centre, and next ones that we could actually find that they got space was 2 hours time. So booked into that, went off to Waitrose, having sort of a late breakfast, came back, and had the great joy of trying to get them in. If anybody's used them, they are awful. As you see, you've got to hook them up onto these hooks, and we managed to get my bike in, and a guy got on at Doncaster with a gravel bike, you see on the right hand side there, got his in. When we got to Doncaster, no, Durham, the chap got in with a big mountain bike, great big knobbly tiles, all bike packing gear, and he took one look and he said, "I'm not going to get that there," he says, and he just stood in the corridor. So bit of a nuisance, these things, and I think I'm posted on the on Facebook about it, and got a lot of people saying, "Yeah, they're horrible." But there we go. That's how it gets. Fortunately, when we got to Edinburgh and got on the Edinburgh Glasgow, they have these nice commuter trains, and you can just walk them on, which is lovely. Anyway, eventually we got to Largs, and our route was going to go from Largs, across Bray, then back to Largs, up to Wemyss Bay, and then across to the island of Bute. And you can see there's a wee little route there. It's a seaside town, Largs, nice little place, and whatever. And we caught the ferry there that takes you across to uh, Cumbrae. And it's a lovely road, a lovely flat road. It's a nice introduction from whatever. Goes all the way around the island. It's very popular with holidaymakers. The hire a bike on the island, or you can do it on the mainland, and then come over on the ferry and then cycle around. There's one sort of town on the island, that's Millport. It's a lovely little place. And there are palm trees and a beach, and it's got its own monster, which apparently is quite famous. And as you can see, it's a lovely little route round, good views. And we were then back in Largs, which is famous for its ice cream parlours, and also its Viking statue. Apparently there was a Battle of Largs between the Vikings and the Scots. I don't think anybody particularly won. They all claimed to have won. It was more of a skirmish, I think. And then we cycled up to Wemyss Bay Station. Now, if you haven't been to Wemyss Bay Station, you must go. It is absolutely beautiful. It's actually been voted, I think, one of the most beautiful stations in the UK. And I think it was built by James Miller in 1903 for the Caledonian Railway. Apparently, the Glaswegians used to come and take their holidays on the Isle of Bute, or Rothesay. And so they'd come down by train, and you can just see to the left-hand side, there's a route going down, which would take you to the steamers where you'd get on and then go across to Rothesay, which is what we did. We then caught the ferry across. Oh, there's another picture of the station, and one of the little wee boy with his yacht in anticipation of going on holiday. That's our ferry going across to Rothesay. Just see we're coming into Rothesay itself. Um, by the way, we did this in June. We stopped a little bit in Rothesay. We were going to camp there, but actually had this awful climb up to the campsite to find that actually they weren't really open, which was a bit annoying, but never mind. So we decided we'd go and find a wild camp. And we thought, looked at the map, St. Ninian's Bay looked nice, so we cycled over there. And it's absolutely gorgeous. Lovely views across to Arran. One slight problem, that area was wall to wall with camper vans. So there was no way we were going to find anywhere to wild camp there. So we moved on a little bit to the next bay up, which is Ettrick's Bay. And we found this little wild campsite right just off this little path, which meant there was no camper vans about. And that was a nice little place. The only problem, the wind had just dropped and the midges came out. And if you know Scottish midges, they're a wee pain. So as I say, it was dinner time for the midges. Okay. Our next route from there was to then go up through the Isle of Bute. Our next little ferry ride, I think I said we did 15 ferries, and then up through a little bit of Argyll onto Glendaruel. There's Ettrick's Bay, absolutely beautiful. That was probably about 5:05 in the morning. That's one of the nice things about wild camping is you do tend to wake up quite early because the sun's up and whatever. But it's absolutely beautiful. The roads up through there. Oh, that's the nice thing about Argyll is it's really off the tourist trap sort of places. It's not like Skye or the Trossachs or Pinlochry or places like that. So there's not that much traffic, and the roads are relatively, sort of empty, which is lovely. The scenery is really lovely. Across the ferry here at Coltrave, just the other side, is a nice little post office stores. Picked something up for lunch there, and headed up towards Glendaruel. And this was we turned off the main road here and go down this little B road, which was a nice, sort of route down to Loch Ridden, which is a beautiful little loch, as you can see, and where we had our lunch. Nice little picnic spot down there. And then through our campsite at Glendaruel. Now, I think Laura mentioned about, my thing, a bit of a back problem. She was struggling, she does sometimes a bit early on, just getting used to it and everything like that. So we decided to stay another day. And I said to the campsite owner, I said, oh, is there a shop anywhere near? And she said, oh, well, it's a good 20 miles away. Oh dear. I said, well, she says, but I'm going to see my mother. I'll be passing it. Would you like me to get something? And she was really nice. She got some bread and some milk and whatever. Really lovely lady. Okay. From there, we set off, and thanks back was feeling a bit better. And we were going to go over the big hill, the Biala Castle, as you can see down the back at the bottom here on the elevation, to Tignabrook and then to Portavadie, and then there's a ferry across to Tarbert. As I say, this is the back road from Clachan and Glendaruel. Lovely views, with the mountains and whatever. And this was the climb coming up. Now, I did mention this was in June. When we left Suffolk, it was 8 degrees. When we got to Largs, it was 24 degrees. And I don't know if people remember in 2023 in June, we had this bit of a heat wave. Going up that hill, which was quite steep, it was approaching 30 degrees. So it was baking hot and it was hard work, I must admit. But it was worth it when we got to the top because beautiful views down the Carls of Bute. Absolutely beautiful. And then lovely ride down. And that's the only good thing about climbing. You get the ride down. And this is Tignabrug, nice little place next to the water. And they have a lovely tea room in Tignabrug, a little bit too comfortable, or whatever. And Frank said, "Oh, we must get going. This is, if we're going to get to Tarbet." The only problem dropping down to sea level, you know you've got to climb up again, and that's leaving Tignabrug. Oh, no. And the road over there, again, a little bit, you probably saw from the elevation, a little bit of up, and this was another little bit of up. Unfortunately, a single track road, which is a little bit of a nuisance when there is traffic coming down. They don't quite appreciate that if you have to pull over to let them pass, that sometimes it's a little difficult for fully loaded touring bike to get going again. But that's cycle touring. And we were down there to Portavadie to catch the ferry cross. Those ferries just run sort of every half an hour or so, so you don't need to book or anything. It's just gets to turn up, particularly when you've got the bike. Cars a little bit different, I think. And they get through to Tarbet, lovely little place. And a little bit of thing about Tarbet. The name Tarbet, you may, if you've been up there at Hebrides, there's another Tarbet up there. And it comes from the Gaelic Tarabut, which basically means passage, sort of, or crossing sort of thing. And it's portage, that sort of type of thing. And it's basically, as you can see from this little wee map here, the boats used to come up the loch here. They would offload their goods. They would then be wagoned across here and then get onto other boats. So it saved them having to sail all the way around the Moluccan Tide. Anyway, from there, we were going to go off to Arran, and that involved another little climb, as you can see down here, to Colonsay, and then a ferry across to Lochranza. And there's no campsite in Tarbet, so we actually stayed at a wee hotel here in West Tarbet. And we met this party of cyclists coming down the NC 78. And this chap that you can see in the photograph just waved, and he said, "Oh, you're in for a treat," with this sort of slight, how shall I say, hint of sarcasm in his voice. It was a good pull up. But I'd love to have talked to the guy in the recumbent, because I'm not sure how they get on with the hills. There you go. Anyway, we got over it. We actually met up with this set of guys from Edinburgh, who we'd actually met going over Tignabrug. They'd stayed the night in Tarbet. They'd actually passed us because, as you can see, they were staying in hotels. They hadn't got all the camping gear that we'd got. So, and they, whatever. But we got ourselves across to Lochranza, which has a wonderful little castle, which I understand was used by Robert the Bruce in 1306 when he returned from Ireland to take the Scottish throne. So, oh, and by the way, if you go to Lochranza, as you come out of the slipway from the ferry, turn to your right, there's a lovely little cafe that does absolutely brilliant toasty sandwiches on their own sourdough bread. They're hot smoked summer ones are brilliant. Right from there, we camped the night in Lochranza, and then we went. Our idea was to go and navigate Arran, so we decided we'd go down to Lamlash. As you can see from the elevation, there's a bit of a hill over there, and then once you get over that, it's relatively level to Brodach. Then you've got the Clach Hills to go off over to Lamlash. But if you're into your whiskey, there's your first one. There's the Lochranza distillery that make the Arran whiskey. They have a shop and a cafe in there. So, that's the climb up Glen Clamadale. As you can see, it's a wee bit steep. Really annoying when somebody comes up behind you on a e-bike, but never mind. One of these days we'll probably get one. But once you've done that climb, as I say, it's lovely, flat, going along the side of the water there. And there's a lovely little fish bar. I think we had seafood tacos in there at Curry along the way. And then there's, you can see Gortfell, I think that's Gortfell, which is a big mountain on Arran. And this is us just climbing up through to Lamnash. And that's Holy Island, which is just off Lamnash. Um, Now, this is where it all went a little bit pear-shaped. I decided to go and have a shower. I was having a shower, dropped the soap, slipped a bit as I tried to pick the soap up, wrecked my back. I basically trapped a nerve in my back, couldn't move. It's happened to me before. It happened on Rost in Norway when we were doing the Lofoten Islands. That time we called the doctor and whatever, and she was brilliant. She was Swedish, but it was in Norway. And she said, right, know exactly what you've done. You've trapped the nerve. You need painkillers. You'll need some anti-inflammatories. And she said, I don't want you to sit about. I don't want you to lie down. I want you to walk. It's the only way you're going to get over it. She said, you walk as far as you feel you can do without too much pain, then turn around, walk back in, and next day do a bit more. So basically, we were stuck in Lamlash. We were there 4 days actually, and I basically literally did what she said, walked running as far as I could, turn around, whatever, and it gradually got better, whatever. And it's a nice little place to get stuck in, I must admit. It's right next to the sea there. That's the tides out there. I was plenty to watch, seals, birds, various ones. I'm a keen wildlife photographer, so it was quite nice to, have a bit of time to try and take some photographs of some of the birds. We had a shout while we are there. There's a nice little cafe. We're sitting outside, and there's only, people rushing around, and the lifeboat went out. And then it gave us an opportunity. I was feeling better that we would go and do the Holy Island, which is a lovely little island. You catch a little ferry, which takes you across, and this is the skipper giving us a little briefing about it. It's a Buddhist retreat and a nature reserve. And as you can see, there are these Tibetan prayer flags and stupas and things like that. Look at some Ariske ponies with foals, lovely. And this is the walk you can do. You can do one over the top, but I thought with my back, probably not a good idea. And there's all these rock paintings of, I think, Buddhist gods. Some Soe sheep, and this is Saint Malas's cave. It was a hermit that lived there. Apparently, there's some Viking ruin writing in the ceiling from when the Vikings were there one time. And you get to Pillar Rock Lighthouse, and then basically walk back. We had this slight problem. We didn't know if I could cycle, and there were some big mountains in the way. So we decided that probably the best thing to do, rather than try and cycle it and get stuck, we would try and see if we can get a taxi that would take us. Problem, taxis can't take bikes, or what we thought would be a problem. But I rang up the Arran taxis, and Sandy, the guy there, said, I think I know somebody who's got a trailer. I'll see if I'm ringing up. Came over and saw us. Says, yeah, I've got this organised. And so we had a guy come over with a car and trailer, put bikes on the trailer, and they took us along Arran, took us over the ferry to Colonsay, and then over to Cumbrae. The reason missing out Giga and whatever, that was a bit of a shame. But what we wanted to do was get onto Islay, because we knew that Islay was relatively flat. And if I was over there, at least, hopefully it wouldn't be a problem. So we got to Cumbrae. The only trouble is we got there about 11 o'clock, having just missed the ferry. So we had to wait there till 6, which was a bit of a nuisance, but never mind. But eventually we got on the ferry and headed off towards Port Eileen, past the Isle of Giga, which it was sad to have missed out, but it's there for another day. And when you get towards Islay, home of whiskey to a certain extent, that's Lefray Distillery as you come in. And if you're really into your whiskies, there's 10 of them all on Islay, and you can see them all around there. So if you really want to do some whiskey tasting, that's the place to go. Whatever. There's only one thing. Accommodation costs on Islay are really high. We're talking about £250 a night to £300 a night for a room, double room. And it's all to do with the whiskey tasting. There's a lot of Americans who come over to do it, and I think the prices go up because of that. We ended up that night in a hotel, basically because the campsite at Port Ellen wasn't there, temporarily closed. So we ended up in a hotel, quite a nice little hotel, bit expensive, but we were treated to a lovely sunset over the Maca. And that is the one thing about the west coast of Scotland. Oh, the sunsets. They are just absolutely wonderful. Um, our plan then was to actually cycle around Port which you can probably, I don't know if you can see which is at Port Charlotte here. And then we'd base ourselves there and do some little jaunts out from there, as you can see by these little things. And then after a couple of days or so, take the ferry up to Colonsay. So I fortunately I was okay cycling. You know, I had this problem. You know, could I cut my leg over to get on the bike? But I'd had a test run on the campsite and it was okay. So we carried on. This is Beaumont. This is the famous round church in Beaumont. Not many of those, I think, in the country, let alone in Scotland. Beaumont Distillery, another one of the distilleries. And then we were right around this bay, absolutely beautiful. That's Tre Sil La Rua, beautiful. And as you say, the weather was absolutely stunning. Can't believe it. Lovely, gentle, just right for me cycling. I didn't have to worry about hills or anything like that. And then we passed another distillery, Brew distillery, and then from Brew to Port Charlotte. It's actually got its own separate cycle path, which is really nice. And we ended up at Portmore, and you can see the building. That's the Portmore Centre. It's sort of a community centre. It does meals. You can have your breakfast there. You can have an evening meal there, and it's a lovely little campsite. It's lovely. From there, we did some little jaunts around. Oh, this was talking about sunsets, sunrise in the morning over Portmore. Spectacular. I say the weather we had was just, we couldn't believe it. Absolutely couldn't believe it. And to say, just we spent a time going around, me taking photographs, as I say, as a Dunlin, another view of a Dunlin in summer plumage. There was some juvenile ring plovers. Went down to Portnahaven, lovely little place, lovely little harbour down there. Nice little pub, whatever. Went over to Kilhorman. That's another distillery. And this one's quite interesting because it's got its own barley fields. And if you notice, there's rugby pitch posts. Because in the winter, when there's no barley in, they play rugby there. It's the Islay rugby team play there, which is quite interesting. And there's these little signs telling you how many barrels they'd get out of that particular field. It's quite interesting. Port Charlotte, there's the Port Charlotte Hotel. Really nice, do some lovely meals in there. And Sunday night is folk night. So if you're there, get down on a Sunday night, and they usually have a sort of folk going on there. A bit of crack, as the Irish would say. Went over to RSP Loch Grunach, as I say, I'm a bit of a bird guy. Not that much about, but it's a lovely place to go, and it's lovely to cycle up Loch Grunach. It's absolutely lovely. Sees the tides out there, really peaceful. Met a couple of other cyclists there, had a long chat with them. That was nice. This is the Portmore Centre. It's Frank. We're just about to set off to go on to Colonsay. And the road took us up through Ballycrant, and again, lovely cafe there. So if you're going that way between Bridgend and Port Ascay, pop in there. It's just after the end of the climb, so it's a good place to sort of stop. As you go along, you get some beautiful views of the Paps of Jura, as you can see there. This is the road down there. When we got down to Port Ascay, we had a little bit of time before our ferry left, and we saw a ferry to go to Jura. We had planned to go to Jura, but because we had 3 or 4 days or whatever it was in Lamlash, we were a little bit behind time, because the ferries only go to Colonsay on certain days of the week. But as it was there and we'd got about 2 or 3 hours, we said, let's jump on it or go over to Jura just to say we've been there. Basically, we went over there and just cycled on the main road a bit and stopped and had some lunch. Lovely place to stop and have lunch. Sound of Islay and there, and a few more birds about. It's a common gull, sharp, not quite so common these days. They're actually on the red list, but there you go. And we then caught a ferry across to Colonsay, and this is us arriving at Scalafay. Our Colonsay is a lovely little. It's sort of like a Scotland in miniature. You know, there's little wee mountains and all the. You know, that's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And there isn't a campsite at all. There is possibilities to wild camp there, but we knew that we were going to be there for 3 or 4 days, and we just didn't know what the weather was going to be. For us, Scotland is usually rain, so we thought we don't really want 3 or 4 days of being in a tent, chucking it with rain. So we had this accommodation here at the Backpackers Lodge, which you had to book in advance. But it's a lovely, nice little place, and it's got a little bunk room next door, which is lovely. And then we went off exploring. And Colonsay, again, it's lovely. It really is. There's really sort of one mainy road, as you can see, that sort of goes around the island there. And then another one got to Killoran Bay, another one that takes you down to Oronsay. And Oronsay is where we went. It was absolutely brilliant. Oh, I wax on about, you know, these wonderful West Coast beaches. They are actually lovely. And this is us coming down to the Strand. And normally that's covered in water at high tide. So you have to know your tide schedules. If you go down to the post office, they'll tell you when low tide is. And then you can actually sort of cross the Strand. So I've got a wee video, if it works, of Frank. You can all see this, and you've got some sound cycling across. You can see some tyre tracks. That's actually where the postie goes across each day. On Oronsay, there is one or two people that's there. There's a farmer. Basically, the island is put by an American, but she lets the RSPB use it as a lake reserve. And the RSPB tenant farmer who farms the land are very much for the birds, and they have corn crakes and choughs and but we weren't sure what the surface would be like. But as you can see, Frank's not really having a problem. We've got 50mm wide tyres on the Cougars. There's still a bit of water still left, but it wasn't that deep. We could easily cycle through it. Although you can probably hear Frank puffing a little bit. That's because we have a radio communication between the two of us, and so we can talk to each other, so you can hear her coming through on my little speakers. But it was a bit of fun. You know, I love going across two islands when you have to do things like causeways and things like that. Brilliant. As I say, the weather was absolutely, we couldn't believe it. You know, we'd had no rain down at all. Again, take a breath from Frank.
That was a bit of fun, hey? Well done, dear. Big smile for the camera. Yeah. Oh, look at that. This is us crossing from Colonsay across to Oronsay at low tide. And if I just sort of pan across, you can see the water's virtually all gone across there. And if I come back again around the side and past Frank again, that's out the other side. At high tide, this will all be water. So we've got about an hour and a half on Oronsay before we've got to cross back.
Okay. Actually, I think we probably would have had a little bit more than that, but what we didn't want to do was sort of get to the point where the tide is starting to come in, and having to wade through with the bikes because the salt water wouldn't have done the bikes any good at all. So we didn't like to push it too much. I say when you get the other side, there's a wee little island where there's a island feeler, and you have to go sort of through a sort of track to get onto it. But when you get onto the island itself, views across to Jura and mainland or to Islay, absolutely stunning. And the Maca you've got there, and it's so peaceful. I think we met one person, that we got across there. Gone across just before us, I think, on one of them. There's a ruined 14th century priory there, and the farm is just behind there. I actually got chatting to the guy who he was the son of the farmer, and his parents actually come into retirement. So I think he was thinking, or hoping to take over the tenancy of the farm. And I say, lovely, beautiful, peaceful little place. Some lovely Gallic crosses and whatever. Absolutely beautiful. When we got back, we met this guy, Eric, who he was doing all the GB islands greater than 5 kilometers square by public transport and running 10K on each of them. And he was all doing this all for charity. And that's all the 82 islands. I think I worked out we've done about 46 of them so far. So there you are. There's a challenge for you if you want to do it by bike. That would be a great one, wouldn't it? To do that sort of challenge by bike. Nice chap. We met him actually when we were on Kerrera. So we bumped into him again. I think he did finish them all. There's only one shop on Colonsay. So they're very much dependent on the ferry for all the stuff that comes in. While we were there, there was no milk, and somebody would come back and say no milk. The ferry hasn't been in, or there was a problem or something. I can't remember. And I think the third day we're in, there was a big chat about ferry's been in and there's milk, and whatever. This is one of the nicest places on Colonsay. This is Killoran Bay, and this is the Treiban, the White Beach. And it is absolutely stunning. That's that photograph that I showed at the beginning. I think we were the only people on it that day, and that's one of the nicest things about the west coast of Scotland with some of these beaches. They are so beautiful. We were walking barefoot across here. I don't know if there's any riggies watching. That's run rig people who like run rig, but there's a lovely song, Arran Try, about them, and the chorus is about them walking, barefoot on the beach, with my true love by my side. I could sing it in Gaelic, but that's for you, but I don't think you perhaps want to have that. I don't mind. But a beautiful place, absolutely beautiful. And there's a wee cave at the end, just a little bit further along. And Frank loves caves. I'm a bit claustrophobic. I'm not so keen on them, but she loves them. I spent my time looking at the birds and whatever. This is a common sandpiper, and so he or she, I don't know what it was, but he was calling and making wonderful sounds. There's a gin distillery on Colonsay, and they give away free water. It's not free gin. Apparently, I'm not really into gin, but my friend Barbara is, and she says it's one of her favourites and whatever. So, and that seems to be a thing on the west coast. Of Scotland. There's quite a lot of enterprises now, where whiskey and gin are some of the main exports. I think it's Ian Smith from Trail West on Tyree. They've now got their first slot of whiskey, and now doing a whiskey. They were doing gin and now doing whiskey. Whatever. This was interesting. As we circled around, interesting rig, whatever. Not quite seen one like that. We actually met the lass when we took the ferry back. We met this lass. She was actually from the Philippines, and she was cycling around Scotland, and that was her rig, which is quite an interesting, And I think Simon, on one of his talks, was going on about all the various people you meet en route. This was a couple that we met at the Backpackers Lodge in Colonsay. This is Steve and Maggie, They had he worked, I think, for the NHS, and over COVID, he'd had enough. They'd had enough of the rat race, and they'd actually bought themselves a plot of land, a wee croft, and on Colonsay, and they were up there, and they were going to build a shepherd's hut, which we were then going to live in. And then while they were living in that, they were then going to build their own house. And he had this shepherd's hut, I say shepherd's hut, and I think the last day, or the day before the last day, it was a bit drizzly. Frank wasn't feeling particularly bright. So I said to Steve, I'll come up and give you a hand. I'm an ex-design technology teacher, so, doing woodwork and all that sort of thing is my bit. So he was doing it all on his own. How he managed to do it all on his own, I don't know. And he was really appreciating me, because he needs somebody else just to help you with holding this and doing that and whatever. I helped to get those windows in and various other things. So hopefully he's got, I haven't, unfortunately kept in touch with him, and I'd be intrigued to know if he's actually finished it or whatever. But as I say, we caught that ferry. That's where you saw the photograph, and we are now back in Oban, which is a place we know quite well, and that's where we were going to catch the train back. But we had 2 days there, and our plan was to do Kerrera, and we were hoping to do Lismore and perhaps another island. So we decided we would do Lismore, sorry, Kerrera, and there's a wee bit of a cycle across to where we pick up the ferry. And this is the ferry coming across. As you can see, it'll only take one car at a time. Here's the route on there. You can see, so it opens up the top here, and it's just a short ride down. Vehicle ferry over there. And there's not many roads. There's this road here, a wee little road up there, and another one going up there. And as you can see from the elevation down the bottom, it's a little bit hilly. But that's the postie. He does, because of they're mainly tracked. Some of them are now tarmac, but mainly tracked. So he had to do that on a quad bike. So he just obviously got post and was going to take it back over to we took the track down to where there's a nice little tea room, and they obviously must have a good sense of humor, because every gate you got to, it would say 2 miles to go or 1.5 miles to go. And this one, and if you can quite read it, said it's all downhill from here. And it was a bit of a climb up to there. And that's the tea room. When I say that's the tea room, that's actually where you eat your Yorkshire tea. There's a little cottage, and you ring the bell, a guy comes to the gate, takes your order, and then he brings it out to you, and then you take it into here to eat it. And from there, there's a short walk across to Geiling Castle, which is a ruined castle, lovely little castle. And then we cycled back, actually the route we did. As you can see, it's sort of a gravelly track. The weather was much better. It was a little bit overcast earlier on. And when we got to the end, there's a marina, and there's a wee ferry, and you can get on this ferry, and it will take you across to Wembley. And that's where we caught a train. As I said, I did say we were going to do Lismore, but the day after, it absolutely threw it down. We couldn't complain. We'd had nearly 3 weeks of no rain at all. So the last 2 days, it didn't worry me at all. We said, well, this can wait for another day. So we just pulled around, opened, had some lunch and whatever. Anyway, this is our train home. Again, I said we had to book the bikes in bike racks. Unfortunately, again, there's only so many spaces, so you have to book them in advance. Had a slight problem. Got on the train, got halfway down the line, I can't remember what it was, and we got held up. We were held up for another half hour, which meant that when we got to Glasgow, we were behind schedule. Caught a train from Glasgow to Edinburgh. By the time we got to Edinburgh, we were supposed to have caught the 5:15 train down to Peterborough. We got there, I think, just after 5:30. And as I explained, when we went, we had this problem about booking. We lost our booking, went to the travel centre. They had no spaces that evening. So we had no alternative but to stop in Edinburgh. So we had to go and find a hotel in Edinburgh. We actually found one that was, I think they're university rooms or something like that. And they were quite reasonable. And also we managed to talk to the receptionist lady, and she managed to get our bikes into a sort of a staff area, so they weren't sort of left on the street. But there was a good thing about it. Frank had never been to Edinburgh, so it gave us an opportunity to see a bit of Edinburgh. Went to the castle, and then went around Princes Street Gardens. So that's really it. Basically, our little route. Hope you've enjoyed it. That's us on the Strand, Arran. And as I say, if you want to see more photographs, have a look on our website, cycletour.co.uk. There's a lot more photographs and some do a lot of panoramas and whatever of the trip. So hope you enjoyed it. All right, Laura.
Yeah, thank you so much, John. Hopefully everyone can hear me. That's wonderful. It's obviously, I'm sure I will not be the only person who it's making desperate to go back to Scotland. Seeing those pictures of the beaches just reminds me how you can travel all over the world, but actually probably the best beaches in the world are in Scotland.
Oh, there's some cracking beaches, and I just love the West Coast like that. Mind you, it can, as I say, I was telling Laura earlier, you can see we've got sun hats there. Um, we'd actually left Suffolk in 8 degrees, I think I mentioned it, and we had this, and when we were packing, it was cold, and so we packed woolly, everything's, hats, gloves, duvet jackets, waterproofs, and Frank said to me, "Oh, should we take the sun hats?" And I said, "Oh, come on, this is Scotland." And so we didn't put them in. And we actually had to buy some. We bought those in Lamlash at Chandler's. Just as Laura said, she thought quite surprised they sell them in Scotland, but we did manage to get them. And we did need them because it was just amazing. I couldn't believe it for the weather.
And on that subject, someone has asked in the Q&A box, when is the 30 degrees centigrade weather this year? Do you know?
Oh, I'd love to be able to predict that, but I think with climate change, it's one of those things that you're just either lucky or not. I remember years ago, this before we got married, we went up to Scotland. We were there for 21 days. 19 of them, it rained solid, and that was back in probably 92 or 91 or something like that. I remember talking to a guy in Inverness outdoor shop, and I said, "Oh, why is the weather much better? Because the West Coast is so lovely." And he said, "If it was like that, he said it'd be like Benidorm." Because,
Yeah, keeps it
so,
quiet.
yeah, it wouldn't be peace and quiet, whatever. But there you go.
That's a good way of looking at it. We might have to deal with some bad weather sometimes, but at least the weather's good. So
Yeah.
somebody's asked, two people have asked, and I think you may have answered this, John, but you might want to give a bit more detail about the communication system that you and Frank use. Two people have asked
Right,
that.
yeah. Yeah, basically, it's something we started years ago. Frank tends to not ride as fast as I am, and I tend to be ahead of her. And there were occasions where she got really frustrated, because I was getting too far ahead. And I had seen somebody with one on, and I said, "Well, let's get some radios." And we've tried all sorts of different radios, PMR radios, and various of them. One of the problems with PMR radios is that it's a good distance on them, but they will pick up traffic noise and things like that. And so you can't sometimes hear people because a car's going past that person. These particular ones that we have, they are called the Vertex Velo system, and they're really good because they've got this noise cancelling. So if they will only operate on what we call voice activation when they hear a voice. If a car goes past, because of this clever bit of software, it won't pick it up. It will only pick up voices, and so it's really quite good. If you want any more information, have a look on our website. There's a page about the Vertex Velo. We have no affiliation to them at all, but they did send me a set, which I did try out. And if you do go onto that page, there's actually a discount code. They're about, I can't remember how much they are now, about 250 quid for a pair, something like that. But they are really good. We can just talk as if we're just chatting, and it doesn't matter if she's a little bit ahead of me or I'm behind. There's actually quite a good thing about it, because if I get too far away, she starts to go like that, and I know I've got too far away, so I have to slow down until it becomes clear again. But it is very good because it used to be a case of, I'd stop somewhere and she'll come past and say, "Did you see that eagle? What eagle?" Or whatever. Or, if they were going through traffic, you can say, "Oh, there's an idiot coming up, just be careful," and things like that. So and communications, turn left, at the traffic lights, and, "Oh, I've got caught in the traffic lights. Can you hold on for me?" That sort of thing. It's been brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
It's a great idea. It's a really good idea. I've thought about having one with the kids in the trailer when they're behind me in the trailers. I can't hear them,
Yeah,
although it's quite nice sometimes not to be able to hear them. But I could sing songs to them as I'm
true.
cycling along. If it was one way, maybe a one-way radio is what I need.
Yeah.
Um, so a couple of other questions. Did you consider more wild camping?
Yeah, well, yes. We actually do a lot of mark. I mean, in fact, when we did the I'd Hebrides, we wild camped quite a lot, and that's one of the nice things about Scotland, is that you can wild camp, and we like it. Frank likes it because there are some days where she can do 30, 40 miles an hour, miles, but there are times when she's really struggling and really, she can do 5 or 10. And so I remember when we were at the Outer Hebrides, there were ones, I think, near Belshare, and a bit of a headwind, and she was really struggling. And I said, "Look, come on, we've just got to stop." And literally, we just turned off the road, headed towards the Maca, found a nice little spot in the Maca, and camped. Um, and yeah, there was loads of opportunities to do it. It's just, as I say, on this particular occasion, I think we only did it once, and that was on the Isle of Bute.
Okay, okay. It's definitely easier in Scotland than anywhere
Oh,
else.
it is, yeah. And
Um,
if I can just have a shout out to Denmark, we do a lot of cycling in Denmark, and Denmark's brilliant. They have these things called shelter plaps. Have a look on our website. When some of the Danish tours, there are these little things where it's like a little platform in the woods, and you can stay there for free. And they're all over the place. There's an app you can download to show you where they are, and it's brilliant because if you just want to stop, you just look on the app. Oh, the shelter's bad. About a couple of kilometers away. We'll go and stay there for the night. It's brilliant. Sorry.
Great. Oh no, yeah, definitely worth mentioning that. I remember seeing uh, a, a newspaper article or something about that scheme that you just described in Denmark, and a particular bit of Denmark, which is, and I'm never good at remembering the names of the major islands in Denmark, but it's like to the west of Copenhagen, and they're all designed by architects. There's a whole
Oh,
series
right.
of
Yeah.
little huts that I think it's like three
Yeah.
quid a night, and you can stay in these amazing architects' huts.
Yeah. Well,
Beautiful.
most of the ones there's not a charge for them, but
Mm.
there are some that do make a charge, and there's some that have water, and there's some that don't. Some have a toilet, some don't. But
Mm. Yeah, I remember seeing.
they are brilliant.
Yeah, good facilities, aren't there? Have you used that scheme in Scotland where there's some areas of Scotland, aren't there, where they're now controlling wild camping? So places like Loch Lomond and the Trossachs. But
Yeah.
we quite liked it because you've got the security of knowing that there is actually a place to camp up
Yeah.
ahead.
Yeah.
And
Well,
it's
it's,
still
it's
very low
like, and if,
cost.
we've wild camped in Norway, and you would
Mm.
think it's easy to wild camp in Norway, but there's been quite a few times where the terrain is actually not suitable. It's either too rocky, it's too boggy, or it's too, so it's not as easy as you think to actually wild camp in Norway. Um, so you get the almonds written, you can do it any way you like, but you can't in some respects because obviously you can't use farmers' fields, although you can if you ask them nicely.
Yeah, yeah,
We
100%.
do.
100%. And
That's another
actually,
story for another
if
day.
you often if you ask,
Yeah,
you often more often than not, people say yes, don't they? And then you've got
yeah.
I much prefer asking generally, unless I'm in
Oh, I think
wilder
so.
Scotland.
I always think it's polite and whatever, and it's much better. And sometimes, like as I say, in Norway, we asked a guy if we could camp in his field, and he said, better than that, he said, "Come and stay in the caravan." And caravan in his back garden, and we stayed in that. So
Yeah, I love it. I
it
love
was,
it.
yeah, it was nice. It was better because it chucked it down with rain all night. So
Mm.
we were sort of quids in and whatever. And I offered
Yeah.
to, sort of pay him something. He said, "No, no, not at all." Well,
Yeah, it's great, isn't it?
yeah,
Oh, so a couple more questions, and then I think we'll wrap up. But one
yep.
question about why you didn't go to Jura. Someone says it's very quiet
Right.
there. Why not
Oh, yeah.
Jura?
So, yeah. Well, basically, the reason we didn't go to Jura was that, as I say, I had the problem where I trapped the nerve in Lamlash, and we basically run out of time. We had planned to spend a couple of nights on Jura. Those couple of nights would have been the nights that we spent at Lamlash. It was just a case of, if I hadn't hurt my back, we would have been on Jura, which was a shame because, I wanted to go to Jura. That's why we had the opportunity to just nip on the ferry and go across, say we've been there. We thought we'd do it, but it's there to go back to. But that was the reason. One of the things you have to realise is that the ferries, say to Colonsay and where that run on certain days, so you can only go on those days, and you've got to you can't sort of say, oh well, we'll just bool it and turn up. It won't be there, if you know what I mean. And
Yeah.
that was the reason why we didn't go to Jura. Nothing against Jura. I'd love to go back. I'd
Yeah.
love to climb the Paps.
Perhaps.
Yeah, they look spectacular.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. Many years ago, I did a swim between Islay and Jura, which is the Corrie of Wrekin. It's where the Corrie of Wrekin whirlpool is. Oh no,
You,
is it there or is it between Jura and
no, that's
Scarborough? I
further
can't
up, isn't
remember.
it? It's the top end.
Further north, top end of
Yeah,
Jura, isn't it? Between Jura and Scarborough. So anyway, we swam
yeah.
that. And I'd love to go back. Someone's asked about the range of your comms device. I think someone else has put in the chat they use Senna's and it's about 500 meters. Is that
Yeah,
is that
it's about 500 meters, which is enough. I think if you get any further away from that, then you're getting too far from each other. So 500, it's line of sight. So in built-up areas, it's a little bit less, but 500 meters is easily enough. We did have the old PMRs that they would do nearly a kilometre or more sometimes if it was line of sight. But as I say, they suffered from the fact that you heard every car going past, and it was a bit of a nuisance.
for
But
sure?
yeah, it's enough. And actually, if you've got say 4 people in your group, you can actually link them all up so that you could have somebody up 500 meters away, then the next one 500 meters away, and then the next one 500 meters away, if you see what I mean, because they then link with each other. So you can extend the range between the front person and the back person. Technically, never done it because we've only had 2, but that's the theory apparently.
You needed to. Interesting. Okay. Now, this is the last question, unless somebody puts another question into the box while you're answering. We always, always, always get a question about either gear ratios or tyres or punctures. So this one is, did you get many punctures?
None at all.
Oh, there you go.
Absolutely. Puncture, we haven't had a puncture. I'm talking this up now because when we probably do Wolf's Way, we'll have puncture after puncture. But with the Schwalbe marathons, they're absolutely brilliant. Not had a puncture. I can't remember the last time I had a puncture. We're talking back in 2000 or something.
Gosh,
2002.
that's amazing because I have Schwab marathons on both my Tourer and we have a cargo bike, and when we do get them and on the cargo bike, they're an absolute pain because we've got like big decks that the kids can stand on to get into the
Yeah.
back. And we have, I mean, to be honest, maybe we're just riding them too heavy and over unsuitable ground or something. But yeah, that's
Well,
pretty good going. I don't think that's just the tires. That must be something else.
well, I think it is a case of perhaps it's luck, but we do keep them well pumped up, and I think sometimes that's a wee bit of the key, and just being very careful where you ride. If you ride in the gutter, then you're going to pick up punches. We tend not to do that, and we've ridden some quite rough terrains with gravel roads and things like that. No, I can't remember that. We've been very lucky.
Yeah,
Maybe it's
really
luck,
good.
or it is just that's how it goes. Yeah, I say last one I think was about yeah.
Mm.
I certainly remember getting one in Iceland. I've got pictures of, but that was with our old bikes. But with the Cougars, we've had no problem at all. Don't know why that is.
Great. So I don't think there's any other questions. Somebody said somebody's criticized NG. NG is spot on. I'm not sure what NG means. NG. Anyway, there's heaps of recommendations and things and so on in the chat. So hopefully people are watching those. There's no more questions. So that is it for this evening and for the festival as a whole, which is amazing. Another great year, I think. We've had loads and loads of really, really amazing speakers. So thank you so much to all the speakers, including you, Jon, for joining us and
Well,
giving up your
thanks for
time.
asking me again. I'll have to try and see if I can get to your actual festival. Unfortunately, every time it's been on, it's clashed with something else I've been doing, which has been a bit of a nuisance. But I'll have to try and get up there if you do another one, that is.
Yeah, I mean, well, it feels like the virtual festival is super popular because to give you an idea of numbers, I mean, people might be interested in this, might not be interested. In the in-person festival, we get about 200 people, something like that. But the virtual one, we get between 500 and 1,000 people over the
Oh,
course of
good.
the week. So
Yeah.
it has a bigger reach. People can join in from all over the world. It's easier for me, and people can dip in and out. It's like, in many ways, it's more
Yeah, that's true.
accessible in terms of costs and whatever. So I think there's a really strong reason for keeping the virtual festival going. The in-person festival is a lot more work to organise. So I think people already know because I've emailed this out on the mailing list, but Kevin at Gilside Cycles is an amazing supporter of the festival, and he's really, really keen to keep the in-person festival going. So I'm having like lots of conversations with him about how we can make it work between us or something. So we'll see. My big hope is that we'll definitely keep the virtual one going, and we'll work out a plan for something in person. I think
Uh,
probably if we do the in-person one again, it might. I think it's time for a revamp. I think we need to revamp it a little bit. The format was getting. I think the format's getting a little bit, maybe a little bit stale or something. I don't know, but
uh,
yeah, so we'll see. Watch this space. Not yet, is yet to be decided. But
okay.
anyway, thank you so much. Thanks so much, everyone, again for joining us, and have a fabulous, hopefully, fabulous summer of cycling when summer eventually gets here.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.